welcome to Camp Sylver, a scenic camping spot located at the serene Sylver Lake. Campers or hikers can visit Camp Sylver year-round, but during the summer season, the camp hosts many creative or outdoor activities and week-long sleepaway camps. Safety is important at Camp Sylver. While you're at camp, please be wary of entering a virtual simulated reality, in which case, the world outside of camp boundaries disappears. If this happens, stay within the boundaries of camp, and everything will remain normal. The bordering mountains of the camp when viewed from outside may have an enticing surreal appeal, but please refrain from closer investigation. Almost a year ago at this point, I did a video where I made this Minecraft build here. This is based on a scene from my comic Sylver Road where they go to an ancient shrine in the middle of the mountains. And I've wanted to do more builds based on the world of my comic, but it's been almost a year at this point, but I have done something else. So something I've wanted to do for a while is recreate Camp Sylver, which is a summer camp within my comic. What you need to know is that it's like an urban fantasy adventure comic set in sort of like a rural US inspired region. There's lots of forests everywhere. So I wanted to make Camp Sylver, which is where the comic begins, and I thought it'd be fun to recreate a whole summer camp. I just decided to just go ahead and make this whole build, and now I'm just gonna show off what I've done. It's a massive one. We're gonna show it off in the evening as well, so we can get some firefly effects here and there. So yeah, here we are, the entrance to Camp Sylver. We got a parking lot here, and a sign. Immediately we're starting to see like sort of the environments here. I'm obviously going for a pine tree, evergreen sort of forest, as you might expect in the mountains. But I also wanted to think about the color palettes for this build, so I'm using a lot of sort of yellow, blues, greens, and some desaturated oranges, using very little purples and practically no like reds. So I want all the environments and the structures to kind of fall within that color palette. I wanted the grass to feel kind of blue. This is kind of the closest you can get with the vanilla Minecraft biomes. So I chose the sort of taiga colors for the grass. You know, there's not blue leaves, so I just chose kind of sort of the cooler green ones, but I wanted these trees made of azalea leaves to kind of feel more yellow. In the comic, there's some trees that are much more yellow than this, but this is the closest I can get without the poplar leaves that are coming up. If you look closely beneath the trees, you'll see some of the ground cover is made of like blue terracotta and similar blocks. This is a block that would normally be used for like forest ground cover especially in places like taigas or similar environments, but I didn't want to introduce like very saturated browns into the landscaping, so I used these shades of blue instead, which I thought is an interesting touch, just give it its own identity. And you can see a bit, I also did some rocks, and all the rocks are kind of this off-white color that they kind of start the sandstone yellow and then they fade to a sort of cool gray, almost blue sort of color. So everything in the environments kind of fits within this sort of blue and yellow focused color palette. Camp Sylver, this sign, is the first thing you see. I imagine that people visiting could go here, take some pictures. A dilemma I ran into when making this parking lot was I also wanted the garbage pickup to be here because it's close to where garbage trucks would probably go, but it's also kind of unsightly, so I just set up some walls and some trees to try to block the view a bit. The parking lot has some cars, including some vehicles that do appear in the Camp Sylver comic. We've got Guyana's van here, parked over here. One building tip that I think is neat is I use shulker boxes here to sort of separate the front part of the car from the back, because they have this darker color on the side there that kind of makes it feel like it has depth, even though it's all the same plane. I've also got a motorcycle here, which would belong to Sam. There's a house over here that I imagine would belong to a ranger that overlooks the camp and like year-round. They have a cabin here. Over on this side of the parking lot, we've got a bunch of staff cabins. I took a building and I just copied it a bunch. So this cabin right here is where I decided that the characters in my comic would actually live. So they kind of stay in the camp year-round. and they live in this cabin. I decorated this one in particular to look like it was lived in and sort of align with the characters. We'll look at some of the bedrooms here. First, let's look at the male living spaces. This is where Sam and Seven sleep. Sam doesn't have too much going on. He likes to live on the road, so he doesn't really care that much about his bedroom. It functions. He has a pretty picture. That's about all he needs. Seven has some more stuff going on. He's got a shelf full of like little tools and some projects because he's a bit of a tinkerer. He's got some various projects going on. On the other side, we have the room where Asteria and Guyana would sleep. And in the lore of the comic, Guyana doesn't really need to sleep. She doesn't sleep very often, so her side of the room doesn't have much going on. There's a flower, there's a picture. Asteria's side is a lot more cluttered. I imagine she likes to collect a lot of knickknacks and toys and things. So there's a bunch of various doohickeys around. So I'm using this mod called Axiom, which is a very powerful mod. It allows you to do a lot of building really quickly, which is why I was able to make a build so massive in just like a few months. But another thing it allows you to do is do display entities. If you open up this menu here, you have this create display entity window where you can do some different things. So I use that I created a stone. So I use display entities to create some smaller details here and there around the camp. I use it pretty sparingly, but this is one of the places where I used it. Create a little creeper plush on the bed, some like art supplies. This chairs, you can just walk through it so it doesn't hinder you walking through the room too much. Stuff like that. We'll see a little bit more of that as we do our tour. Just past the parking lot at the entrance of Camp Sylver is the central field of the camp. Located here are several important facilities. The administrative cabin has several functions, including a post office where you may send or receive mail. If you ever find yourself sick or injured, the camp hospital is the place to return to health. The hospital also has a classroom where you can learn how to treat injuries yourself. Any camp activities that don't have a dedicated space or cabin may take place in the multi-purpose cabin. Keep an eye out for special events held here. The quartermaster's cabin contains many of the camp supplies. The staff will make sure everything is where it should be. The cabins at the central field may not be the most exciting, but they're essential for the smooth function of camp. However, if you do want some excitement, the games cabin is the go-to place for tabletop gaming, toys, sports equipment, or even arcade classics. Closer to the lake, you'll find the flag field. Campers will gather here in the mornings for daily announcements and meals 3 times a day. Most meals will be at the mess hall, right next to the flag field. The shore next to the flag field also offers some pristine lake views. So let's check out what's going on at the central field now. So I created this administrative cabin because I figured that Camp Sylver, it probably needs various things to function. Things that I'm not even sure what goes into running a camp, but whatever goes into running a camp, it happens in this building. There's a post office here. My approach to the interior here was put shelves everywhere. I don't know. I just need something that looks like it could plausibly run a camp. A fun little thing I added in front of the admin cabin is this notice board where they post information on various events that are happening. I figured that's a neat way to add some life to this build. Some lore. So let's look at what the games cabin has to offer. So I wanted to have a few areas around camp that just kind of feel like chill hangout spots. I wanted to really embrace the feel of just like chilling out with your buddies at a summer camp, having a good chill summer. So this game cabins was part of that endeavor to just make a cabin that has a lot of games and toys. I decided to go crazy and add some arcade machines, which I figure would not be common in summer camps, but you know, maybe Camp Sylver just has a few like decades old machines that are lying around that people can play with if they want to. Over here we've got the multi-purpose cabin. I like the texturing on the walls of this one. Its purpose is that it doesn't really have a purpose. It's all purposes, all and none at the same time. This is just a large spacious room with tables that could accommodate any variety events. I've got a mural painted on here. At the end of, I think, the second chapter of Sylver Road, there's like almost like a scrapbook photo album type page that shows the characters doing things around Camp Sylver, and one of those is Astery painting a mural of like a magical looking owl, and this is meant to be that, painted on the back of the multi-purpose cabin. And that mural is also why there's a bunch of trapdoors on the inside here, because otherwise you can see bits of the mural poking through the walls. So I just put a wall of trapdoors here to block it and be inconspicuous. Over here is the quartermaster's cabin. Nothing too special going on. It's a bunch of chests and clutter. This is the hospital over here. I decided that this one would also have a shallower ramp that goes up to it. I figured the hospital in particular would have to be accessible. Now let's head over here. So this section over here is the flag field, and this is actually the first part of this build that I worked on. If you've read the comic, you might remember this scene here. The flag field is pretty much taken directly from how I drew it in the comic. Got the mess hall and the flags here and the grassy area in front of it where campers gather. Yeah, inside is where the people eat. I want to replicate sort of mess halls I've been to in camps where they have a bunch of things on the walls. I mentioned that's where the camp logo would be, but it's only 3 blocks wide, so I can't really do much with that. Just imagine there's a logo there. Got some outdoor eating area here where you can get some nice views of the lake and the camp. And one of my favorite spots about the mess hall build is some of the terrain going on in the outside. I think this is one of the areas where I put the most focus on making some intricate terrain. So there's this pathway that goes down from the field towards this sort of wide gravelly shore here. The shore borders some cliffs and that's where the mess hall is. And eventually the shore wraps around to this really rocky area, and we've got this sort of small stream here that's carving through the rocks into the lake. South of the central field, you'll find a pool, which provides a controlled swimming environment. If you prefer a more rugged swimming experience, the cove next to the pool is the place to go. The cove is a popular spot to chill out at Camp Sylver. The cliffs provide a cozy closing experience. The island just off the shore of Camp Sylver has some history. It's up to you to interpret what that history is. Should you ever decide to venture to the island and play archaeologist, if you're not on a rebellious journey of supernatural destiny, please make sure that someone present has a license to delve into mysterious basements. If not, you will be in danger of mysterious basement-related injuries, such as getting stuck in a mysterious basement. So let's check out a bit more of what's south of the field. So this is where some of the swimming areas are. We got a pool over here, which is right next to the parking lot. This is a shower leading to a pool, and then the pool has this sort of staircase that leads down to this shore here, which is in a cove surrounded by cliffs. I wanted the cliffs to really make a nice feel framing the lake here, making it feel nice and closed in, but kind of spacious at the same time. Got a campfire spot over here for anyone who wants to do some lakeside campfiring. We got some docks for boats. I have a little boat here for anyone who wants to boat, and a lifeguard tower for safety reasons. And I figured it'd also be nice to have a little secret hideout next to the cove here, so eventually the shore kind of wraps around here to this spot here. So this is the hideout over here. We got like sort of barbecue spot here to chill out, and the hideout itself looks like an old ship that was maybe repurposed, but now it's just used as a chill hideout spot. I like the feeling of having this old structure or vessel that has ceased operation but is now being repurposed for something else. And I put this island in the middle of the lake to be a sort of an area of interest to look out on, like when you look across the lake. But there's also some stuff going on here. I put a lantern on the island there to sort of indicate that maybe there's something going on here. If we go over to this shore here, you'll see a hole in the ground. And this hole leads down into this sort of dilapidated basement here, and who knows what it was used for. I want to have like a basement here that's like no one really knows what it's used for, but people make there's a lot of urban legends about it, I imagine. So yeah, secret basements, always fun. At this point, you might have noticed the light blue terracotta mountains in the distance of the lake here. I did these to sort of replicate the feel of atmospheric perspective. So I wanted the lake to feel closed in. I didn't want you to just see across and it just be water, because that might feel too much like the ocean. So I wanted it to feel like there were distant mountains across the lake. So instead of just doing more lines of trees, I wanted it to feel more distant than that, so I used light blue terracotta to sort of the color mountains might be in the distance due to atmospheric perspective. And yeah, I have like tree type shapes on these mountains that kind of look like there's trees there, but they're much smaller. You can see that built in the distance there. But yeah, they're not much smaller than the rest of the trees in this build. They're meant to be scaled down. So using a combination of scale and color to create this feel of perspective of mountains that are more distant that look more distant than they actually are. And now to introduce some of the many crafts or skills you may learn at Camp Sylver. The first of which is cooking, essential for creating nutritious or comforting meals. The garden grows many plants, some used for cooking at camp and some are just pretty. Plants have a wide variety of uses. You can learn how to take care of them at the garden. The sewing cabin is the place to learn about stitching, weaving, knitting, and similar skills. Learn how to mend or assemble clothes or toys. The art of applying pigments and markings to a canvas can create windows to your memories or imagination. The art cabin is the place to practice painting, sculpting, and other crafts. You can also visit other worlds with the art of speech and movement. The performing arts cabin is the place to practice acting, music, and other performances. At the main campfire, campers or staff members may perform skits, songs, and tell stories in camp-wide events. The campfire is the beating heart of many camps, including Camp Sylver. Now who doesn't love themselves some good lore? The library contains the camp's collections of books and documents. What could you read about today? On the slopes of the hills near the campfire, we'll find some of the first campgrounds where campers may sleep. Could the raccoon, fox, or deer camps be the location of your stay at Camp Sylver? You can learn the craft of shaping metal at the smithing cabin. It's tough but rewarding work. Leatherworking may seem soft, but it's also some hard work. You may create leather crafts at the leatherworking cabin. If you want some more hard work, check out the woodworking cabin. Assemble handy items made from wood or whittle intricate figurines. If you anticipate exercising your resourcefulness and getting lost in the middle of nowhere, the Outdoor Skills Cabin is the place to learn how to use ropes, maps, or natural resources to survive and thrive. Alright, we got a lot of various cabins and activities ahead of us, so let's begin. So next to the flag field with the mess hall, we've got another kitchen area. We've got the cooking cabin here. But a sort of outdoor eating area here as well, where barbecues might happen. I figured it'd be fun if there were like small barbecue events that may be held here. Cross over a bridge here to some more areas at camp. We got a stream that runs under the bridge. Get a nice view of part of the lake there. And you also get a nice view of the mural in the back of that cabin. And as we cross this bridge, we get to the garden. So I figured the camp may have a garden for not only classes, but also just providing a bit of extra food for the mess hall or any other sort of cooking that might happen at the camp. It's kind of divided into various sections here. We've got the shed, very small interior, but very cozy feeling. Just holding some tools for the garden. And yeah, this section has like raised plant beds for raising for growing plants. This is almost like a workstation area where you got some access to water and some little outdoor storage. Some shelves here with flower pots. This is like a mini orchard over here with just a couple small tree plants. And this is like a nice little seating area next to some flowers over here. And I also put some compost over here. And part of the reason I put a bunch of flowers in this area is I figured the compost might be smelly, so the flowers might help with that. And this is an extra section of the garden where Guyana grows her plants. So in my comic, the character Guyana grows her own sort of special kind of flower, and this is the spot where she grows it. So further off from the garden, a trail wraps around, giving access to more of the camp. So over here, we've got the sewing cabin where various fabric and thread related activities happen. And then just past that is the art cabin where various paper and pencil and paint related activities happen. I had fun with like the outside of this one. I decided to have like a little sidewalk chalk area for people to draw on the ground a bit. And I put this wooden statue here, this sort of owl outside the camp that was maybe like a big art project at some point that they have. I had fun with the colors in this one. I went for like a white color for the outside of this building, but then I did a bunch of little color splotches, like on the walls here there's some pink and yellow. And even on like the porch here, there's some splashes of like bamboo or cherry or even pale wood to make it feel like it's kind of been covered in bits of paint over time. And this is the interior of the art cabin. This is where all the fun art activities happen. So we got some tables here for some tabletop drawing or maybe even sculpting. We got a bunch of easels here for easel-based painting. And I had fun with making all the interior details here. I covered the walls of paintings, like past art projects. There's art supplies like dyes and brushes. I wanted this interior to look like it's bursting with creative art energy. As we get to the campfire spot, we have the Performing Arts Cabin. And the Performing Arts Cabin has access to the stage here. And this is the stage in front of the main campfire. Summer camps tend to have these big main campfires where the whole camp will gather. If you ever want to store your books of skits or songs, you can keep them in the library. There's this little nook here behind the stairs, which I think is neat. And there's this upstairs area as well. I like how I sort of divided the interior in this building. Outside is a neat little spot, sort of a enclosed outdoor reading area where you can look out into the woods. Past the main campfire is some of the first campsites. For all these campsites, I just did some basic tent structures and just pasted them around. Like I essentially have all these structures that are essentially prefab structures that I made one of and I just duplicate around the camp as needed. I made a lot of use of that for these various campgrounds because there's a lot of the same tent or table or bathroom that may be used. And I wanted all these campgrounds to feel like they have their own identity. So the camps around this region are sort of on the hillside. There's a lot of rocks around them, but still like a fair amount of tree cover as well. A distinct feature that this one has is just like a pile of boulders over here where campers may play pretend, play king of the boulder as you do. Down this trail here, we've got some of the more heavy-duty, hard-working cabins over here. Starting with the smithing cabin, which is a lot more open. We've got this more open area here because it's hard work. You don't want to be stuffed inside with all the blast furnace heat. You want to be open to the wind. Even the interior here has a large open door here to kind of let some breeze in. Got leather work over here, which is kind of a similar feeling to the smithing cabin, sort of an open area, and the interior is also kind of open to the breeze. Not that leather work is particularly hot, but I figured it probably uses like chemicals for like processing the leather that you may not want to be stuffed inside with. May want some breeze. Over in this direction, we'll look at that later. But over here, there's another campsite over here. This is the deer camp. There's some like stumps of trees here, some mushrooms growing in them. So if you want to camp with some fairies that live in those tree stumps, then this is where you go. And this one also has like right next to it, walk through the trees a bit, and you can get a good view of this grassy area, which we'll look at later, of course. Our next hardcore craft skill is woodworking. So this is where you get to use knives. Wood yard, where you can chop wood, you can saw wood, you can whittle wood, you can cut wood in as many ways as you like. There's this indoor area as well, if you want to cut wood while indoors. If these tools are too soft for you, if you want to be even more hardcore, you can learn about how to survive in the wilderness in the outdoor skills cabin, which I imagine has a few different activities that happen in it. So there's some like compasses and maps here for like learning how to use a map or navigate. And I figured this cabin has a lot of different uses. There's some tools on the shelves here, various kind of like outdoor supplies, like ropes, flint and steel. And yeah, there's some like little structures out here which are meant to look like various structures made of sticks and rope, which it's hard to replicate in Minecraft, but I tried to create that feel. This is probably also the cabin where you learn about how to survive in the wilderness, like where to find water or food and stuff like that. Hungry for a high-end spin on familiar backyard barbecue meals? Craving some extra garnish on your burgers? Craving some extra garnish on your life? Then come visit Garnish Burger, located at the grassy meadow at the north side of Camp Sylver. There are many ways to unwind by the water at Silver Lake. Visit the fishing cabin at the northern side of Camp Sylver's shore to set sail or go fishing. More campgrounds are located at the northern side of Camp Sylver. The Frog and Firefly camps are located next to a picturesque grassy meadow. A lonely campfire overlooks the meadow. This is a great spot for small ceremonies or contemplation. A set of decayed trees tower over the meadow. They make for a striking visual that pierces the open sky. Campers are welcome to ponder the nature of time and decay, gazing upon these trees. When contemplating the lasting scars left by impermanence, please be sure to keep in your thoughts the joys of the current moment, and remember that you are alive, or else your mind may be influenced by the decay. So down by the north side of the lakeshore here, we'll find the fishing cabin, which is sort of like on its own in this nice little area here. I think this side of campus where I've got some nice views going on, where you get a nice view of the mess hall on top of the rocks there. Over here, we've got this sort of grassy area where you can look out across this sort of marsh region. I did some frog sound effects if you can hear those. So now let's look at the fishing cabin. It's got a lot of docks and a little cabin. Some various fishing supplies like bait and string and fishing rods, of course. This is one of the nicest views in the camp. If you ever seen a B00-100's series of Hermitcraft, especially season 10, he made this his own like fishing spot area, and I was inspired by that. I made this fallen tree here that kind of decays into the water. I was just using like layers of trees and bushes to create this nice scenic effect here. And of course the view over here is nice as well. You can just see pretty far up that grassy area there. We'll look at that later. And this part of the dock over here, you can get a closer look at some of the marshy segments of the shore. And with that, later is now, because we're finally going to look at this big grassy area I've been hinting towards for a while. So I base this area off of like experiences I've had like hiking near mountain lakes. Sometimes they'll just have sort of long grassy clearings that'll flow sort of into the lake. I figured this is a nice contrast to the more densely wooded parts of the rest of the Camp Sylver. You get some really nice sweeping vistas here. We got some more campsites over here. These are inspired by like a campsite I've been to before, where it's like sort of on the edge between the woods and a grassy meadow. We gotta look at this structure over here. This is Garnish Burger, one of several Garnish Burgers I've built in Minecraft at this point. But this is based on the original one that me and some friends made at a summer camp at some point. We found a pile of logs, and we cleaned it up a bit, made it a bit nicer, and we role-played running a restaurant where we put pine needles and other kind of leaves on pieces of bark and pretended that was burgers with garnish on them. And so Garnish Burger was born. And it's kind of just been like a running gag in my life since then. So this is a little homage to that. It was kind of in a campsite similar to this, sort of on the edge of a meadow, like this one. And then we also have these sort of giant trees here, but they're also decayed. Like these trees have become very old and they're sort of withering away, but they're still standing. I just like the visual of sort of grayed out, decaying trees standing very prominently above the grassy area here. There's this bridge here above the stream. I like the view from the bridge here. You can look at the stream just winding its way until it's unseen in the trees. And you have a campfire up on this sort of grassy overlook here. You can just go over here and look at the whole meadow there. While most of this camp is pretty enclosed in trees, here I just wanted to emphasize just like these vistas here. And this is one where you get some height. You can look out across the landscape here. A shrine at the base of the mountain cliff serves as a tent for a variety of spirits. The shrine isn't dedicated to any singular spirit, so you may pay tribute to whichever one you wish during your stay at Camp Sylver. You may continue to sense the beyond with the use of your eyes and telescopes at the astronomy cabin. This stargazing spot is located at the top of the mountain that stands tall over Camp Sylver. The bear and eagle camps look across the camp from above, great spots for mountainside camping. Practice your aim at the shooting ranges at the edge of Camp Sylver. Camp Sylver offers archery and BB gun activities for campers that can be trusted with projectile weapons. Coming down the mountain back towards the central fields, you can take a break at the trading post, pick up a handy tool, tasty treat, or a souvenir at this shop. Camp Sylver is surrounded by nature, but what makes nature work? You can learn about plants, animals, and other living things of the natural world in the biology cabin. If you're interested in the ground beneath the camp, the geology cabin is the spot to learn about rocks, minerals, and sparkly crystals. And we run into the shrine here. In the world of Camp Sylver, in the world of my comic Sylver Road, there are these spirits which can represent all sorts of things, like different parts of the land, different concepts, different skills. Essentially, like any sort of idea or thing you could imagine having a spirit that embodies it, that spirit may exist in the world of Sylver Road. Like, each person may choose their own sort of spirits that they may worship. So I want to have a spiritual area in Camp Sylver. I decided to have this shrine sort of serve as a multi-purpose shrine where it still feels like a church, but it's kind of meant to accommodate any different spirits. So anyone can come in here and just like pay tribute to the spirits that they worship in whichever way they think is right. I also wanted to do something special with the shape of this cabin, and I was thinking about how like sacred places work. Often they're places that are similar to spots that humans may occupy, but they're set aside for spirits. Like often even the real world, you'll have like a lot of sacred places they're like houses, but they're for spirits. Stuff like that. So my approach for this cabin here was to make it like a tent. So I figured this is a camp. There are lots of tents around. That's where a lot of the activity happens. So the shrine here would be the shape of a tent. It's like a tent for the spirits. So that was my approach for the structure here. This part of the camp we're getting towards the mountain, sort of the mountain at the center of camp. So over here, there's this long trail that starts to go up the mountain. We got this bridge here, which overlooks a mountain stream. And I was thinking about where do streams actually start? And I'm not entirely 100% confident in where they actually start. So I just decided this stream is just gonna go into the mountain until it just becomes covered in rocks so you can't see it anymore. My understanding is that mountain springs kind of act like this anyway, where like water kind of just comes out of the ground. That's how water works. And then this trail, it goes even further. Eventually, the trail opens up here. We got this open grassy area. You may notice that I've used a bit of light blue terracotta and pale moss in the ground because I figured I want this environment to feel more blue. That would kind of give the feeling that this place is close to the sky. It feels kind of colder a bit, like not freezing, but just a little cooler and a little closer to the sky. Because the astronomy cabin is up here. Kind of just got this small, lonely cabin up here with this platform. I use display entities to create telescopes. There's not really a good way to make telescopes in vanilla Minecraft. You kind of just gotta do like an item frame and it looks weird. So display entities really came in handy for this to make the telescopes actually look cool. And the astronomy cabin has some astronomy things going on. I used some more display entities here to make like a model of the solar system. There's a model of Earth and the moon. There's these like sculk blocks as display entities that have been like, their proportions have been adjusted to turn them into wall coverings, kind of like star maps. And this little room here kind of serves as like a radio station because outside the camp there are radio antennas, and this is where the radio stuff happens. So we're coming back down the mountain again. We're jumping over to this trail here. So this is way at the edge of camp. At the edge of camp, we got a couple shooting ranges. So this is just like an open area out there with targets. You got some guns. I used horse armor, but upside down. I figured that looks like a gun. We've also got an archery range. It's the same as last one, but it has bows and arrows. We've got a couple more campsites up here. These are the highest up campsites, and they're next to this stream here that flows from the mountain and down to camp. And this camp right here has a little bit easier access to the stream here, so you can get some nice stream views looking up or down. Yeah, that trail wraps back around to where the shrine is, and this one goes back down towards the campfire. Just go back down here, and suddenly there's the library and the campfire there. We've got another bridge that goes over the stream, so it flows back there and down to the rest of the stream there. I did some geyser tricks here to just give it a bit more of a waterfall feel. This is how they look. I put geysers here, and geysers work kind of funkily. In order to get them only just going over the water, I had to make air spaces above the geyser. I don't think this is even possible in vanilla, so the water doesn't flow down here, because when I made these, I said so that the blocks don't update, so the water doesn't flow, and I used display entities to create fake gravel blocks to obscure the holes where the geysers are. Here is the trading post. So a lot of summer camps I've been to generally have a trading post where they sell various items. So you'll find various camping tools, souvenirs, so I did some like shirts and hats here. Other things. You want some crystals? Sure, have some of those. And there's also this like sitting area on the back of the trading post that looks out across this little grove here next to the stream, which feels kind of pretty neat. Some more final cabins. These cabins are just like the same one, copy and pasted, because they serve similar but different purposes. This is the biology cabin. It's where you learn about plants and animals and various other living things. I use display entities in here to create special terrariums or aquariums and put little critters in there. And just up here is the geology cabin. You got some rocks here if you wanna do some rock time. And there's also rocks in here. You got a bunch of different minerals up in the shelves here. Got like a sand box here for like digging around for rocks. And then this trail goes back to the center field of the camp here. Got this sort of like grassy section of the stream here. You can see there's a stream that comes from over there. It feeds into the other one that we've been following along. I also want to show off this bridge here where you can see the art cabin there. This provides some more stream views, so consider our collection of stream views complete. Camp Sylver is home to a couple streams that flow from the mountain springs into the lake. The southernmost stream is an especially peaceful spot to stay by the creek and watch the water flow beneath the cliffs. The salamander and trout camps offer serene streamside camping experiences. If you're up for a hike, a trail follows the stream further into the hills, offering waterfall views and a tour of crumbling ruins whose history has been lost. In lonely moments, sometimes it may seem that sounds echo off the canyon walls coming from nowhere, where lights drift almost out of sight in the woods without a source. Use your curiosity with caution. The forest may lead you to spots where it whispers thoughts of fear and despair directly into your mind. Always travel with a buddy. I lied, our collection of stream views is not complete. There's a whole nother stream we have to look at. So, just past the staff cabins here, we've got a trail that goes along the stream, and there's a few things going on here. If we go down here, we can got access to part of the shore of the stream here. Feels very nice and cozy over here. Got some sticks in the ground, pretty exciting. We've got a couple campsites along the stream. This one is very open to the stream here. You just go over here, and there's another stream shore here. This one is actually based on the camp where Guyana and Astri are doing their little ghost talking to act in, where they're doing their ghost story. So I imagine this camp right here is the camp where they would actually be doing that. At the back of this camp is also this sort of hillside where you can venture down past the rocks down to another part of the stream shore. This is inspired by a camping spot I've been to that kind of has a similar geography. Speaking of events that happen in the first chapter of Camp Sylver, I did something else. So, in the first chapter of Camp Sylver, Dion and Astery are walking back to the cabins, and on their way along the trail, they see a light in the woods. Without getting too specific into what the light in the woods is, I'm just gonna try to walk you through what's going on. Yeah, this area here, the trees have a lot less leaves on them to kind of give that slightly eerie feel. So I have I use light blocks to create these disembodied lights in the woods. Very ghostly feeling. If you follow the lights for long enough, you get to this suddenly open clearing. And there's this flower there, the same flower that Guyana grows. And if you get too close to the flower, bad things happen. So yeah, that's based on the scene at the end of chapter 1 of my comic. They go follow some spooky lights into the woods and then bad things happen. There's even further to go. So at this point, we're going to be looking at some of the areas behind the camp. It's areas that are kind of like technically not really part of camp, they're like on the fringes of it. I figured that'd be like trails which the camp has access to. So if campers are feeling adventurous, they can just venture out on these trails. So on this bridge here, you get some nice stream views here. Look at this. And over here, look at this. We got a waterfall, some more geysers. Gotta use some geysers. Along the trail here, I did these little ruins. Sort of stone ruins that were maybe once something, but we don't know what that is anymore. Sort of give this feeling of history to these trails. And then this stream continues on into another mountain spring. So these back trails continue a bit further. There are a few different kinds of environments back here. Trails wrap around behind Camp Sylver for anyone who has a couple hours to spend on an adventure. The trails further west of the mountain are open to the sunny sky. If you want a break from the hustle and bustle of the wooded camp, these trails offer a quiet break. You may see a tower standing tall over the highlands. It's hard to miss. This is a fire watch tower, crucial for catching potential wildfires before they spread out of control. Exercise caution when venturing into the caverns. Silver Lake isn't the only lake at Camp Sylver. You may also get a remarkable underground lakeside view. Campers are encouraged not to crawl into the caves unless they are trained in facing the dangers of underground adventures. There was once an operation down here, but it is no longer functioning. Remember that people who once worked here left for a reason. So this area is very, very open, very grassy. I wanted it to feel kind of dry up here, so I used a lot of dry grass. So this trail connects over to where the shooting ranges are, but one of the few areas of interest in this part of the camp is this fire tower. I figured it'd be a striking sort of structure that stands over this open area. This is very sort of industrial framework holding up this tower, where the fire watch person watches for fires and makes sure not too many fires happen. And yeah, I put this Firewatch tower in a particular spot because I didn't want it to compete with the mountain too much. There are a few different options for where I could put it. I didn't want to put it anywhere over here because you'd end up looking over too much of the side of the camp. You could see too much of the flat world there. So I put it closer to the mountain. And I decided to put it more towards the stream rather than around here because I figured if I put it here it'd compete too much. But over here, it kind of stands out as its own thing. These trails continue over here. You got a lot of rock views. Got a big boulder there. You can only really see it if you're paying attention, but on the side of this trail, you might be able to see a dark spot there. Some sort of hole. So if you investigate further, there's an entrance to a mine shaft. Let's explore this. You got this decrepit, abandoned mine shaft here. So yeah, I wanted to feel kind of industrial slightly in here. And then it opens up to this aquifer, this massive cavern with the lake. So I want it to feel it's eerie, but also kind of pretty calm as well, kind of chill. It's you may notice that the color of the foliage down here is a bit different. I used the pale garden instead of the taiga colors. So the ferns are a bit gray. Use a lot of hanging moss. Got this sort of dock here that's crumbling away. I tried to use smart use of lighting to create points of interest. There's a bit of lichen around to just line up the floor a bit, but I used these lanterns just for where I wanted the eye to be drawn to. So it's the sitting area there and the dock. And then the aquifer just fades into darkness. Yeah, there's a more natural part, a more closed-in part of the cave here. You can follow it out here to this part. We'll look at that later. And this aquifer is actually the source, the water source of the stream we passed by earlier, to the rocks over here. So the cave is where this stream comes from. You can just barely see where the water goes underground there. And there's another little stream the stream that runs through the meadow, that also comes from this aquifer. There's a similar tunnel that runs through there. Just like a long, I just wanted this to feel like a long trail of grassy area. There's not too much going on along here. I want it to feel, but I think that makes it feel sort of longer. Our tour of Camp Sylver and its backcountry trails concludes with this grove of giant trees. Hundreds of spectacularly tall trees form a canopy roof held up by giant bark-covered pillars. Remains of trees long gone form fascinating sculptures scattered around the grove, fallen, hollowed, or scarred from fire. This is nature's art gallery. As we passed out of the grove and past remains of a barn that once was, the trail wraps back around to the grassy meadow at the north of camp. We cannot change the past. That which is burned down cannot be unburnt. Remember that even though fire has burned in the past, it can still burn in the future. When you stand in the shadow of fallen empires, be aware that ruin can come again. Respect what came before you, and keep its shadow alive. And now we're entering one of my favorite parts, the grove. I've used different kinds of trees, of course, to kind of create some nice variety. And some of the trees I've used are these giant trees, which are 3 blocks wide. I think my favorite tree, my favorite real-world tree, is probably the redwood. I freaking love redwoods. Okay? I love redwoods and similar big trees. But of course, red is not quite the color palette I'm going for here, so these are a bit more of a desaturated brown. I want to create a similar feel to redwoods, so I made this, and to truly pay my tribute to my love for redwoods, I created this grove here. That's just a grove of giant trees. So let's look at some of what's going on here. Just past the grassy highland area, we have this burnt down house. It's mainly all that stands is the chimney and the foundation. And over here we also got some scarred trees. This one is burnt down, but the other ones, they're scarred but still alive. And as you go further, you can really feel the atmosphere in here. I want the main dominant tree here to be these giant trees, so only sparing use of the smaller kinds of trees. There's not even and all the trees I've used have pretty sparse leaves. Like there's these small, like almost sapling kind of trees that are here and there, but a lot of the other trees are pretty sparse. You can see a lot more of the trunks of these trees. And it creates this feel of just like this canopy upheld by these pillars of trunk. You can see through the tree lines all these layers of trunks. I like the patches of darkness that kind of accumulate in some areas. The grove has a few features. So there's these burnt down tree stumps. I like the look of bits of trees that are half burnt down. It creates a very sort of striking look. So I did a couple of tree stumps here. This one's a lot more open, sort of half crescent moon shape. But this one you can actually go inside. It's enclosed except for the hole up top there. In this section here, there are a few trees that I decided to put really close to each other, so the bottoms of the trunks are merged together. Sometimes you get that with trees. And there's a small trail here that leads over to this lonely bench that's looking at this fallen tree. Yeah, this trail through the grove goes for a while, so you get a lot of that tasty giant tree action. As we start to ascend out of it, we got another nice view here. I designed this view in particular just for you to just be able to see a lot. So you have this big fallen log here, with the stump next to it. You can just see the log go down. And your vision is clear and you can see the end of the log there and a little bit of a stream. This fallen log here is actually one you can walk through, so I wanted it to feel sort of damp and overgrown in here. There's a banana slug. And yeah, now we can see a bit more of the stream. I wanted to have a part here where there's these giant trees growing directly on some of the gravelly parts of the stream here, because I figure that's a striking visual. The stream flows over here to the bridge we saw earlier. There's the meadow and the bridge. And the stream, where it comes from, are these cliffs over here. And see where it comes from the rocks and into the cave. Speaking of the rocks, I made them mossier in the grove section here to match with the very lush feel of this area. Now, unfortunately, we're leaving the grove, but now we're getting to see another cool part of the camp. Over here is this abandoned barn, just next to this grassy area here. Feels very, very lonely here, but I'm into it. I like the texture I did here. I use a lot of different blocks of texture here to make it feel like it's overgrown by moss. Got a tree growing through the roof there. And it's just got a bunch of grass growing in here. It just feels wonderfully decrepit. And this trail goes on for a little bit. It meets back up with where the meadow is. There it is.
Ghost stories are a treasured tradition in Camp Sylver. It is a way to honor the voices on the wind and shapes in the dark, and places where the non-living live. There's a lot we don't know about what's around us, or what came before. Our imagination fills in the empty crevices of what we don't know. This is crucial to the ecosystem of the unknown. It's also very important that you remember what reality is. Be careful about becoming lost in lies and illusions. Thank you for joining us on this tour of Camp Sylver. There is much more to discover. We hope to see you visit. Remember to respect one another, drink plenty of water, destroy the demons that torment us, and have fun.
That's pretty much all I've built in this Camp Sylver build. I just want to talk about a few more things that went into the making of this big project. I just want to show this off real quick. This is a map of Camp Sylver. You can see the main camp here, but then there's all this other stuff around it. There's the mountain, there's the stream there, the grove is right there, there's the meadow, and of course the lake. Just to show you like an overview of how this build is laid out. Over here is where I made all of my trees and other prefabricated structures. And this is also where I made some of my prefab structures. Like bathrooms, tents, water fountains. There's some other ones that I didn't build here. Stuff like that I built and then just copied. You know, it's places like this, run down, not used anymore, where you think about what could have happened before. What happened before we were here? So why don't we stay here for a bit and take a moment to reflect on the past. Welcome to the past. So here is the Camp Sylver build, but with one major chunk missing. This is the final chunk that I need to build in order to finish this build that you've probably seen finished already. With my excellent ability of foresight, I have foreseen that it would be nice to have a bit of a demonstration of my building process for this Camp Sylver build tour video that, as of right now, is but a glimmer in my eye. So I'm just gonna go ahead and build this area and document it.
A lot of the early work creating terrain is done with Axiom, which I used to paint in large amounts of terrain at a time. I knew that I wanted a cave in this region of Camp Sylver, so I started with that so I could make it the size I want and put the surface terrain on top of it. After establishing a quick foundation, I started shaping the cavern, keeping in mind where tunnels would be that connect the cavern to elsewhere. The elevation tool was very handy for shaping large amounts of terrain at a time, and the rock tool was handy for creating shapes that are organic without being too rough or smooth. After blocking in the shape of the cavern with Axiom, and further refining with the smoothing tool and by hand, I shaped the surface of the terrain, using the same tools. When the shape of the terrain is established, I painted the basic blocks used in the terrain, including darker blocks used for the cliffs, and grass everywhere else. I make sure to use taiga colors for the grass as well to lean into those cooler colors. When the basic stone is all painted over, I use the stone again to block in where their boulders will be. I can get some nice boulder shapes pretty quickly with the rock tool, though I still finesse their shape by hand before applying texture to them. To texture them, I select the stone used for the boulders and use an Axiom operation called Auto Shade. I provide the Auto Shade operation with a gradient of my design, and then it automatically applies that gradient to a selected area based on my player's position. Now each of the boulders look like they're lit. When the boulders are done, I paint in some paths, and finesse them as well. In the caverns, I paint in patches of pale moss on the ground and use Auto Shade again to texture the walls of the cave, just with a darker set of blocks this time. Whenever I use Auto Shade, I try to keep in mind what parts I want to draw the eye with light, and which parts I want to recede with shadow. Camp Sylver is meant to be viewed at any time of day, with any sun position, so the direction of the light doesn't really matter. Composition and framing are priority. With the basic terrain done, now it's time to build some structures. Besides blocking in some rectangles and clearing some terrain and duplication, this process is largely done by hand as normal with Minecraft Creative. I start with the fire tower, going for a style that leans industrial, while still fitting with the cabin themes of Camp Sylver. I also create the mine shaft between the surface and the cave, making sure to make the tunnels windy enough to obscure the surface and the cave from each other, and create a somewhat perilous and creepy experience. The final steps involve adding in trees and foliage. Underground, I use Axiom brushes to paint in ferns and dead coral, as well as mushrooms by hand later. Making clever use of masks, I also paint in bits of hanging moss at varying lengths. On the surface, I paint in the ground cover the forest sections and patches of desaturated blue blocks. In Axiom, I have stamps set up that allow me to paint in trees on top of terrain. For this area, I start with tall and spindly trees with relative sparse spacing. I fill in the rest of the forested areas with the standard conical trees and pack them densely together. The trees may sometimes be placed in a way where you can see the ground block beneath their trunk, or they may even be floating, so I use some Axiom masks to fit these. When the bigger trees are painted in, I stamp the smaller tree sizes at the edge of the tree line wherever I feel they could fit. In this particular area, I wanted the tree line to feel pretty dense and obscured to put the emphasis on the grassy sections, but other parts of Camp Sylver may have more open tree lines and invite your vision into the woods. Now I paint in the smaller plants. I use a mask and large brush to paint in ferns anywhere that's shaded by a tree. The mask and large brush allows me to do this quickly without getting under the trees myself. I paint some extra ferns and bushes at the edges of the trees. The remaining sections of ground are filled in with flowers and grass. I use a large amount of dry grass in this area. The finishing touch is to sprinkle in some firefly bushes along the path wherever they fit well. And now the build is done. Let's return to the present.
So there's something else I want to discuss when it comes to my thought process making this build, and that is its relationship with magic or the supernatural. Now, I mentioned before that this is based on an urban fantasy comic I'm making. But you might be asking, not Proper 22. Where's the magic? Like, if this is like a summer camp in a magic world, where are the magic classes where you can learn about how to be like a wizard or something? And to that I answer, have you not seen this? This is pretty magical. Yeah? Alright, but in all seriousness, where actually is the magic? First of all, in the world of Camp Sylver, as I mentioned before, stuff like spirituality or magic, it's very individual based. Like, a lot of magic is based around the spirits, and a lot of how people interact with spirits is up to the individual person. You don't really get schools of magic where there's this one order of magic where you can learn specific kinds. It's not like places that are dedicated to fire magic or shadow magic. It's really up to each individual person how they pursue magic, if they choose to do so, or if they're even able to do so. In that way, magic is kind of like an art. Maybe not even quite like art, because in art you still got movements like Impressionism or Cubism, magic in Silver Road is kind of like if each person had their own movement. And because of that, you don't really get classes for magic. Like whenever someone does get educated on magic, it's probably much more of like a individual tutor-based situation. And something else I was thinking about with the relationship between Camp Sylver and just like Silver Road in general, and its relationship with the supernatural is that a lot of the supernatural, a lot of magic, it's not something you encounter. It's not something that you run into, at least in most cases. It's something that you kind of just have to find. That's what spirituality is in the world of Silver Road, is that it's on the individual to reach out and try to find the magic in whatever concept means a lot to them. They come from sort of imagining them rather than actually finding them. Hollowed out trees like these, perfect spots for finding like gnomes and fairies, but there aren't actually dens for gnomes and fairies here. But the thing is, they still feel like places where you may find like mystical creatures. And I think whenever I've like interacted with nature, gone camping or hiking or something similar, whenever I've found a natural place to be like special, is because I look at a place, I look at a feature of the landscape, and I imagine, what if there was something going on there? What if there was a ghost situation going on there? The act of speculating, sort of coming up with, filling in the gaps, seeing mysterious things, fragments of the past, and filling in the gaps, that in itself, I think, is a magical kind of act. That's something I wanted to replicate with the Camp Sylver build. There's not a lot of things that are explicitly magical, but there's I put in a lot of places here that you could look at and speculate on. I left out the answer to what is there. The Camp Sylver build is kind of like a series of questions of like, here's something. What could be the deal with this? And it's up to you to give your interpretation. So there it is. My summer camp build in Minecraft. The build of Camp Sylver. This is, look how big it is. Just look at it from the sky here. And this is largely possible due to Axiom. It's very powerful, but... And so that's a tour of my Camp Sylver build done. I hope you enjoyed, maybe found it inspiring. That is the end. Goodbye, everybody. Sam wishes you well.